Hey everybody, Retrofied here. Today is day 15 of this month-long marathon leading up to the Switch 2's launch. And for today's video, I want to talk about some new features we could be seeing within maybe the first year of the Switch's launch, or maybe even the second year. So if you guys are really excited about the Switch 2, make sure you leave a comment below telling me what you're excited about. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of these videos in this month-long marathon. So without further ado, let's start talking about what I actually mean by this. So over a month ago now, we got our Switch 2 Direct where we saw so many of the features of the system. Before we had just seen a little presentation of it about what it looked like, but this Direct really showed us an in-depth look at the Switch 2. And I feel like a lot of us were expecting a little bit more than what Nintendo showed off, but they showed off what the system looks like. It looks pretty cool, has some cool features, but it made me wonder, what could we get? If you don't remember, there were so many patents and rumors about so many different features that we could get on the Switch 2 that we just never got. So I honestly feel like a lot of these features are going to be saved for a later patch update, or maybe they just haven't come up with that idea yet themselves. So I think first off, the big thing that everybody has probably been wanting, 2 screens. Now, do I think Nintendo's actually going to come out with a second screen attachment? No. But I do think that you will be able to connect to another screen and play Wii U games or DS games on it. I've said this in a previous video, but the Switch 2 is like a culmination of everything Nintendo related. So it makes sense for them to keep adding things to this system so that it can basically be every other Nintendo system. So how would this feature work, you might ask? Well, it's all to do with one new feature we got, Game Share. Now this isn't new, we had Download Play on the DS, which is basically just this, but Game Share can connect to Switch 1s and Switch 2s, so I feel like if they were to have a DS Virtual Console or a Wii U Virtual Console, or those games being on the Switch 2, I feel like they could have this be a way you can connect to another Switch and basically use that as the gamepad, or use that as the bottom screen, while your other screen is docked on the TV, and that is like the TV screen, or that's the top screen. I feel like this would be a really creative way for them to kind of bring back the Wii U and also bring back these DS games with an actually like good way to play them. The DS was one of their best selling handhelds, so for them to just leave so many of those games back on the DS and the 3DS doesn't make a lot of sense for Nintendo. They sold so many copies of these games, and they could do it again. And I know saying hopefully they can recreate the Wii U isn't necessarily a good thing, because the Wii U was the Wii U, but it would be a really cool way to play these old games. The Wii U did this exact thing on their Virtual Console, where you could play DS games, having the bottom screen be the gamepad and having the top screen be the TV. So another really big feature I would like to see, and hopefully we could see, is VR. The Switch 2 is powerful. I say this every single video, but the Switch 2 is very powerful. And I know I'm gonna get comments saying it's not, because yes, it's on par with about a PS4 Pro, but the Switch 2 is a powerful handheld. And I believe there were some patents recently about a VR mode for the Switch 2. And if you remember, the Switch 1 had Nintendo Labo with a VR mode on it, but the games that had a VR mode on them, it wasn't very good. Mario Odyssey had a VR mode, but it was basically just a standstill camera where you could see Mario run around. None of these games were like true VR games, but I feel like the Switch 2 could potentially be Nintendo's VR system. And I said this earlier, but the Switch 2 is a culmination of everything. I feel like that's a big thing Nintendo isn't marketing, is that the Switch 2 is like their Nintendo entertainment system. Not that it's their first system, but that it is the Nintendo system. This is their system that deserves to be called just Nintendo. But a VR mode would be very cool, because obviously the Joy-Cons have a motion tracking ability, and the Joy-Con 2s are a lot bigger for your hands, so I feel like they'd be a better VR controller than the original Joy-Cons, but I definitely do think that we will be seeing a VR mode on the Switch 2. And now for another kind of feature, but not really a big feature, I think Nintendo is going to expand Game Chat. I think they're going to turn this into their own social media, or rather to their own like Discord, because right now we're seeing it and it looks just like Discord with the calls, but I feel like they'll eventually add messaging to the Switch 2, or add just kind of like a social media platform. I know we did have Miiverse in the past, but I feel like Nintendo would do something new, just because social media is such a big thing now, rather than it was back when the Wii U came out. It would be crazy if Nintendo came out with their own like TikTok, where you could record videos in your games and post it to their short video app. And you have to think that they have a button dedicated on the controller for this application, and that's just crazy, because the buttons that take you to stuff are normally only the home button on every console, but this system has a button to take you to the game chat. So I feel like they'll definitely expand upon this, whether it be just like Discord or whether it just be, you know, kind of like a laid back social media thing, kind of like Miiverse. All right, so for the last feature I think that we're going to be seeing on the Switch 2 is something that we've already kind of seen with it. I think there's going to be a huge emphasis on connecting to your smartphone. So we had the Switch Online app with the Switch 1 that basically kind of did this, but not a lot of people used it. But seeing now with the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom version for the Switch 2, using the smartphone for a pretty big part of the game, that being the new Zelda Notes expansion, it kind of makes sense for them to keep doing this with some of their other games. And this could even lead into the second screen, because not everyone might have, you know, another Switch for them to connect to, but a lot of people have a smartphone that they could connect to, and it could just stream your Switch games on that top screen and have your actual Switch be in your hand where you can use it as the bottom screen. Nintendo isn't shy of making a bunch of different devices able to connect to their actual systems. We saw this a bunch on the GameCube, where you could connect a Game Boy Advance to your GameCube and use it as a controller in some games, or use it as a second screen. So I think it would definitely be really cool to have a bigger emphasis on smartphones with the Switch 2. And another thing with these smartphones is that this could play another big role in the game chat expansion, because they could use this as basically a mobile app for the social media. So imagine the Discord mobile app, but it would be the Nintendo Game Chat app, or it'd be on the Switch Online app. And you could basically use this game chat app on your phone, or just use it on your Switch when you want to play with your friends. And one thing I forgot to mention with the game chat that I just thought of now is that this could be a really cool way to kind of jump into games with your friends. The Switch one has such a bad problem with not really being able to join games with your friends really easily. So I feel like having this would be just amazing. So yeah, wrapping up, I hope you guys enjoyed all this. Let me know what features do you want to see in the comments below, because there is so much potential for this console. So if you liked the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of these videos in this month-long marathon. So I will see you guys tomorrow.